More and more, we seem to be living in a world that is a product of what someone, somewhere along the line, decided was right, good, safe, worthy. And we spend our lives conforming to these values without stopping to think if they are even ours. These lives, these rights, these values, where did they come from? Who decided? Now, by profession, I'm a screenwriter and director. And more often than not, here at home, I'll run into someone and tell them that I'm a filmmaker, and their response will be, "Oh, how nice. Do you have any other hobbies?" Well, the small talk kind of dries up after that, but this actually goes to the heart of what I want to talk about today. We've heard a lot about, a resilient mind, taking the initiative, daring to try new things, fantastic stuff, inspirational stuff. But I'd actually like to start with a little bit more about the nature of fear itself. And I don't mean the obvious kind of fears. I don't mean being scared of cockroaches or petrified of public speaking, as you can obviously tell. I'm talking about a more insidious kind of fear. The kind of fear that is ingrained in us through societal precepts, through expectations of correctness, the right job, the appropriate pursuits, through an obligation to conformity, an obligation that fills us with terror-laden guilt should we seek in our hearts to deviate from it, through religion, and this very, very warped morality that is increasingly becoming more and more pervasive, especially here in Pakistan, through, in fact, the global education system, a system which increasingly prioritizes being right over learning, which prioritizes being right over being intelligent. Now, these fears are working their way into the conscious of our society at the most fundamental levels. I recently had the fantastic honor to do a lot of work with and for children in Pakistan. And during this time, a survey crossed my desk, a survey that stated that a staggering majority of Pakistani children today are taught actively that asking questions is disruptive to the classroom, that it is wrong. So when we reinforce a fear of challenge, when we penalize the act of seeking, we crush the core of a developed, an enlightened, an intelligent mind. We crush the curiosity, the courage, the quest. And in doing that, we limit ourselves only and only to that which is known, which is safe, and which is already established as truth. Now, the danger in this is that if we only adhere, if we are creating a world in which, if we're creating a world in which conformity is the only right, in which adherence to a standardized truth is the only right, we're creating a world in which being right is more important than being true. We're creating a world in which we're too scared to even imagine an alternative in thought, in life, in work, in our hopes, in our dreams. We're creating a world of fear. And what these fears do is that they build more and more boundaries and restrictions. They create more and more walls of difference and division and ignorance, because we live in the fear of the guilt, the wrongness of even daring to explore anything other than what we already know. But what can we ever know if we are too fearful to question? What this kind of fear does is it stops us from seeking knowledge. Now, every source of learning and wisdom in the world today, from science to religion, elevates the quest of knowledge. In science, every discovery, every idea, every invention, at its heart lay a question. Think of Newton, lying under a tree, trying to take a nap, thinking to himself, why do these apples keep falling on my head? A simple question that led to a paradigm-changing discovery. The quest of knowledge is one of the fundamental tenets of every major belief system, every world religion. And yet still, so often, faith is used, manipulated to bind us in ignorance and thus in fear. In Islam, the scholar is more venerated than the martyr. The heart of the prudent seeketh knowledge, and the ear of the wise getteth knowledge, says the Bible. Hindus believe knowledge to be a gift from the divine. In Buddhism, they believe that science and spirituality can work together to better the world. In Judaism, you cannot be considered dedicated to the Jewish faith and be ignorant. In fact, the former head of the World Sikh Organization has been known to have said that the word Sikh literally means student. It is through questions, through knowledge, that we challenge our belief systems, we test them. And many times our beliefs will be reaffirmed. Many times they'll be refuted and changed beyond all recognition. But every time you challenge that which you perceive to be true, you will come to understand, empathize with, and be more knowledgeable of that which is other than yourself. And is this scary? Of course it's scary. With these questions, we're vulnerable, naked, stripped of this armor of surety that complacence provides us with. But someone wise, well, no, my brother, once told me that courage is not putting it on, but taking the armor off, being vulnerable. So you see, if we can just be brave enough, if we can be honest enough, vulnerable, naked enough, perhaps we can begin to see something of ourselves in that which is the other. And this magic recognition of self, even in something that is different from ourselves, this is compassion. And it is this compassion, this understanding, this empathy that is the true conqueror of hate and intolerance and division. For these things are born of fear. Fear of that which is other than ourselves. Fear which is defeated by knowledge. For knowledge is the doorway through which we visit compassion. And if we believe this to be true, then the opposite of fear is not courage, but love. For what is love if not the embracing of something other than yourself? Compassion, the displacement of self, the displacement of ego, and seeing beyond yourself, seeing a bigger picture in which hopefully we can finally see that fundamentally, humanity, people, we're really all the same. For me, this realization came very strongly through my work in the arts. And we had the incredible privilege to grow up in an environment which provided us with a massive exposure to a huge array of arts and cultures. And time and again, we've seen these arts, we've seen the creative spirit transcend all man-made boundaries of caste, creed, geography, race, religion, to transcend these boundaries and find a oneness. Because they do, as the arts can, as the creative spirit does, it speaks the language of the soul. It speaks to what is fundamentally the same within us. And if we can free ourselves, if we can be brave enough in our heart and free our mind from these fears that would limit us, fears that would make us less than, then we can start to build a world of love and find what is fundamentally one within us, and not a world of hate and fear and war, if we will it to be so. The power of the will is an incredible thing. The human mind in and of itself does not differentiate between the imagination and reality. And if we can believe this to be true, then we must also believe that we are co-creators in our own reality and in the world around us. Now, with such power and responsibility, the truly terrifying thing would be to allow these constructed, ingrained, subliminal fears to limit what we make of ourselves and limit what we make of the world around us. Because it is only our will, the will of our hearts and minds, the dreams and ideals of our hearts and minds, that make us greater than we are.